can turn down the volume of the laptop, and then I'll say
yeah.
hi to you. How are you?
Pietro, I am very well indeed. Thank you very much. And nice, relaxing. If that was the weekend, it was nice and relaxing anyway. So it's hard to know what day is it. So
we started really strong. We started this morning with a little impromptu review of the Graham Chronofighter, and then we've been online with Genus watches. And I thought I was going to have a nice weekly wrap up, introduction of the week, really, with the time brief. Thanks for joining me. And straight away, we had a couple of questions. One of them is, what's the best watch of all times? So I decided I was not going to answer that. I was going to pass that over to you directly.
Thank you, Pietro. That's really kind of you. So, what is the best watch of all time? That is, well, how do you quantify what is the best watch of? It's different things to different people. I
can give you a suggestion if you want. So there is somebody daring to say, it's Tom, the watch boy, saying a reference 191032 Lange 1, Langenzoon. So he's playing very safe.
That is, if you're talking about collectible and talking about an investment piece, you're talking about something that is maybe of historic significance. Yes. I guess, there are a number of very famous references. You could go sports watch. You could be talking about Paul Newman. You could be talking what's really like, it's what is the best watch?
If you had, so there's another suggestion, Harry Winston Opus 12. How about that?
Interesting.
So I take that money is no object here in this game. So can you let us know, is money object? Do we have a limitation with money?
Well, you see, the problem with this question, Pietro, is that we have a lot of really good friends who all make the best watch ever made. Yeah. So it could be Vianney, it could be Constantine, it could be Antoine, it could be Carrie, it could be, it could be Philippe Dufour, it could be Paul Gerber, Sven Anderson. I'm sorry, man. I'm not saying
so,
which.
Johnny's being very democratic. So let's do something. I will take the risk, and I'll say, if I had now $300,000 in front of me, and you tell me in 10 minutes you have to go out and get a watch, and they're all available for you now. So I'm going to follow this game by Smiley Cot, and I'm going to say I'm going to buy the Deep Space, Vienne Alter, the Deep Space.
That's not fair. That's not fair. That's
well, the braver gets it first.
I want that one. I want that one. Look, I have a very I have a lot of time for that little crazy Frenchman, Vianney Alter, and I've had some fantastic evenings, conversation, chatting with him. I've worn the Deep Space for a night while we were all dining with the rest of the team from the AHCI, and I just there are some moments that are that you never forget, and the Deep Space it's just so out there. There's nothing like it. It's amazing piece, but you can't even restrict it to the Deep Space. What Vianney Alter does is nobody else does it quite like Vianney Alter.
Shall we share our story, Johnny? Because I think you were with me in Baselworld when Vianney explained us how he conceived the Deep Space. And thank you, Smiley Cot. Yeah, we take risks because ultimately we're not even paid by brands, to write the reviews that Johnny writes, or to curate our website, the limited edition. So we are fairly free in what we we can say. We don't mind being provocative sometimes. But the deep space, if you want to hear a great story as well, if you have the chance to speak with Master Watchmaker VNA, he has actually conceived the deep space in a series of dreams that he had in a certain amount of time, whereby he could visualize the watch only in his dreams. And I'm not bullshitting you here. It's the real story that VNA would tell you himself. So the deep space comes from within, from his mind, from his brain, in a state of unconsciousness, really.
Unconsciousness or absinthe, one or the other, I think.
Yeah.
I can remember recently sharing or telling them his partner Laurence that I was just about to enjoy a Ricard pastis, and she said, "Oh, what are you drinking that for? Like, you want to come over here and try some real stuff?" And it's the absinthe. And suddenly, whenever I heard about the absinthe, everything started to make sense.
Johnny, it's amazing because, of course, the la Brévine, la Val de Travers near Neuchâtel is obviously where absinthe has been intermittently legal and illegal across different times in history.
Yes,
and now where quality Fleurier, quality of standards are established, as far as brands like Beauvais, Parmigiani, and a lot of these watchmakers are. So are you hinting there might be a connection between absinthe and what happened later on with the watchmaking in that area?
Yes.
Well, you're brave as well, ultimately.
Well, it certainly would explain a few things, wouldn't it? Like, so, but, wherever the inspiration from, like Vianney's inspiration comes from his absolute love of science fiction. He's a Star Trek fanatic. And he, so he took the concept for deep space was from Kubrick's movie, wasn't it? From 2001: Space Odyssey, and that big, huge space station out in space, and so he. I love where he gets his inspiration from. It's not necessarily just from well, I was going to say not from other watchmakers, but it is. He's also deeply inspired by Antide Janvier, who was 1750 to mid 1800s. His Janvier masterpiece as well. It's quirky to look at. You look at it, you think it's.
And, Smiley Coat is pointing out how a lot of these independent watchmakers are influenced by the youth and by the myth that we have lived as well, Johnny, in the 70s, in the 80s, about this unknown future of the year 2000 and what was going to come with it, the post-futuristic kind of wave. And Vianney Alter is deeply into that. And Smiley Coat, I can suggest you, if you want, to go on our YouTube channel. You will find an interview to Vianney Alter. It's myself, unfortunately, and Vianney. But a lot of nice stories come out from that interview. So go on the limited edition YouTube channel. You will have a look. So I grab my tea, Johnny, as well, and I have already another good question for you.
Good, man.
Sorry, it's been a long day. It's been a long day. And,
I know.
There is another good question. We had this question the other day as well. And please, guys, keep throwing questions at us. We love it. From Tom, the watch boy. Tom is, again, coming back on the Richard Mille topic. And the fact that is Richard Mille then a trend? Is it a grey watch? Or is it just a 10-tear trend?
That's it. Hey, if we knew what to invest in, we'd all be wealthy, wouldn't we? So it's very difficult to say.
Yeah,
I think that it's probably a mixture of both. Like it's very advanced watchmaking. It is haute horlogerie. It's they're using advanced materials and so their watches are very elaborate, very complex, very avant-garde, very expensive. So it's hard. I can't criticize a brand like Richard Mille. They're doing something different, and I guess a lot of the cost of Richard Mille comes into the way that they do work their brand ambassadors, where they float their name. They're on McLaren, they're on Ferrari, they're on who knows how many different F1 cars. Are they on the Alfa Romeo team as well? They're also Rafa Nadal. They're who wears one famously when hitting the ball at 120 miles an hour.
So you know how much of the value of the watch gets built up on these kind of overheads that have accumulated, which is also the situation of most of the industrial mainstream brands to a point.
Yeah. Well, Richard Mille probably aren't an industrial mainstream brand, but I did point out to you on Friday, like they're making a lot of watches and selling a lot of watches, 4,900 watches. It's not to be sniffed at. There are not too many independent brands making anything close to that.
Absolutely.
There's none. Could you think of another independent brand?
Absolutely. I can. So sorry, I think it was from Tom Watchboy. We can't really answer the question, but I know, Tom, what you mean. There is a certain arrogance in showing off Richard Mille, especially from some of the clients, Richard Mille clients, and considering Richard Mille as the ultimate watch and nothing else has any value whatsoever. Of course, we do not agree with that kind of.
No. Again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think Tom is lining up to buy one or two Richard Mille, and that's why he wants us to give him a wee bit of confidence and say, "Yeah, go for it, buddy. Your money, you're going to double your money. You're going to be, you'll be able to retire on your Richard Mille." I'm sorry, Tom. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I just see Smiley Cut mentioning Groibel Force, and so there's another hugely expensive handmade brand, very, very different to Richard Mille, but still, handmade in the traditional way. They've even created recently a Groibel Force that is actually entirely made by hand, and
No, that's a great point, and I can tell you, Johnny, then if we keep playing our game, if money was no object in the price tag of 150,000, where Richard Mille typically is, then I would probably go for a Genus these days. We have had the pleasure to host Genus and Sébastien Billère, master watchmaker, today here live, and I think is one of the first times he showed himself at this level.
Yeah,
and, I would completely embrace a new concept made by a truly inspired watchmaker that is really aiming for the highest of watchmaking. And would you believe, first year they launched their project 2019, and straight away they got the Grand Prix de l'Horlogerie prize for mechanical exception. Extraordinary.
Well, that's a first for a new brand to launch. But again, the Genus is such a complex piece that everywhere you look, there's something happening. There's the hours are rotating around the outside of the dial on a ring around the inside of the bezel. There's a little pointer there at the 9 o'clock that indicates the hour. But the most captivating of all is this a little train of connected carriages, which go round in a figure of 8 around the dial, and that indicates the minutes. And
which Smiley Cut you can appreciate on one of the videos we have published today, so you can see the motion of this incredible timepiece that Johnny's describing.
Yeah, and do you know what? There's some watches. It's hard to describe watches in words sometimes, because what you're looking at really, it defies explanation, because you're looking at something that is like the likes of the genus. How do you describe this thing that you can look at a picture of it or a video of it in 30 seconds and you can get a much better understanding of it? But it is absolutely bewildering how they even how they come up with these things in their heads at all. And Genus, winner of the mechanical exception, as you say, in 2019, surprise winner, but very deserving. And surprised because nobody had really done it like that before, like, you know. So
he was saying today, Johnny, that never in a million years he would have expected that. Albeit he's been formed at the school of his dad first, and then Roger Dubuis himself, and then Felix Baumgartner from Urwerk, and then Sven Andersen. So it is some school. So he knew what he was doing. He developed his project over the last 4 years. But when it came out finally, he said never in a million years he would have expected to get immediate recognition as much as he had. And I was asking him, when you get that the first year of activity, where do you aim to, for the rest of the life of the brand? Because the brand is not called Sébastien Billère, it's called Genus. So obviously he has a vision for a brand on the way forward.
And yes, and there'll have to be a follow-up to Genus, or maybe there won't. Like some brands can create that masterpiece, and that is their raison d'etre. That one piece. You see variations on the theme, and I'm thinking perhaps someone else you interviewed not so long ago, David Kando, who also from has this extraordinary reimagination of how to display the time, and to what he has done with his 1740 complication. Started off, the first one was very, very well, it was otherworldly, but it was you could see the very classical watchmaking involved in it, with the guilloche, with the enamel dial, and now it's gone.
Genus has just popped up, and as we are talking of you guys, and thank you again for the nice interview today. We are talking about how exceptional it is, what you have achieved so far, and so much looking forward to see the next. And in terms of our week, Johnny, of course, the time brief is a way to prepare our followers and whoever is interested in independent watchmaking to what's coming next. We are interviewing on this channel tomorrow Marco Borracino from Singer Reimagined, another brand that has all my admiration, and another guy that is as inspiring as somebody can be. And I think, Johnny, once again, you were the one pointing me in the direction of Singer Reimagined when they started strongly. It was 3 years ago with a nomination at the Grand Prix de l'Horlogerie, or maybe 2 years ago.
Again, yes, they were award winner as well with the Singer Reimagined, the chronograph. With the movement. Singer Reimagined. If ever there was an expression that rang true of a watch, it was reimagining a 200-year-old complication. I'm just doing a little bit of work today on Louis Moinet, who is the inventor of the chronograph. In 1816 was the first time there was a chronograph, and it has remained essentially unchanged. Like an awful lot of watchmaking, it has remained unchanged for the last 200 years. And what happened with when Singer arrived, it's actually quite interesting, because another big name kind of pipped him to the post with the Fabergé Vision, and which had this same complication. But for my money, as cool as Fabergé was, Singer was a new brand, and what made it special was this chronograph movement, which is manufactured by a company called Agenor, and the movement was called the Agengraph, and it was a work of Jean-Marc Wiederich, and he completely reconceived how the chronograph worked. He actually identified and said, the way this has been working for the last 200 years, it's all very good, but it's flawed.
Exactly. To be fair, Johnny, a chronograph is a complication that is widely underestimated, because you can find it, as a function in a lot of watches that you find even at very, very low level prices, low level finishing. But it's actually, as a mechanical complication, one of the trickiest actually to realize in a certain quality standard.
It is a complication that people don't see as a complication, and yet it is extremely complex. It is intricate. It is very delicate. It is what is a chronograph? A chronograph is a record of lapsed time from the moment one presses the pusher on the side of a case to until you stop it with the other pusher, or in the case of the Singer, it's a mono pusher chronograph, and so it records the elapsed time. So if you're following a lap of a motor race, or you're someone doing 100 meters or 500 meters or something, you can time it using your chronograph, and you can also time it for much longer periods, as chronographs go from 1 minute chronographs to 30-minute, 60-minute, and 12-hour, and even 24-hour chronograph counters, and that's where. But I suppose what makes them cool is because usually on a chronograph there's 2 or 3 little sub-dials on the dial, and it kind of is that sort of dashboard cluster type look, and I think probably men more than women like that kind of motorsport themed look, and that's why the chronograph has been is by far and away the most popular complication that exists. So
to come back on this, sorry, Johnny. Also, Smiley Cott is pointing out, double split chronograph, or there are a lot of variation within the chronograph. One of them is the flyback, of course. One of them is the full voyant or split chronograph. The one that Johnny was mentioning to obviously time simultaneous events happening in front of us. But in terms of brands that have experimented with this complication, you can find very, very few, and that's why I think Singer, Fabergé, and Moser, what they've done, of course, again with the Agenor, latest streamliner. We love that kind of work. And
it's fantastic to see that evolution, that taking a traditional concept and viewing it with new eyes, looking at the technology that's available, just thinking about it differently, and like essentially what has Singer done, or what has Agenor done, which is behind Singer, is they looked at the concept of the chronograph, 3 tiny little sub-dials that you have to go right into and look to keep an eye on, and your eyes they can't be on all of the features at the same time. You just can't do it. So the Agengraph, it has the chronograph. The central hand is a chronograph. The inner bezel is the hours, and the actual time is displayed by a rotating bezel. The hours pass. There's a little indicator at the 6 o'clock, and that indicates your hours. So it means you can absorb all the information in one take.
It's more intuitive because it's centrally based, and also it's kind of magical because it is an automatic mechanical movement, but of course the rotor is hidden behind the dial. Which creates probably the most spectacular overview of a chronograph movement from the decades back, certainly thinking about the Streamliner Moser and the Singer Reimagine track one.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
yeah.
So
We could talk
you're interviewing Marco Borracino tomorrow night then, yeah?
tomorrow night, and then on Thursday I'll have the pleasure to host Manuel Emsch. Manuel Emsch, obviously famously linked to the Swatch Group at the beginning, and he developed Jacques Dro as a brand. I think when Manuel took charge of Jacques Dro was around a couple of million turnover, and he took it and led it all the way to 40 million turnover, so made it an internationally recognized brand. And if you let me, Johnny, probably the only independent brand within the Swatch Group, because as all the other brands were going in a certain way, using the group synergies and also utilizing the communication platform of the group, Jacques Dro has always gone, their own way. It was quite interesting to study for me.
It's very, very true, yeah.
Absolutely. And sorry, just to say that then, not happy, Manuel Emsch took on the immense challenge of making Roman Jerome a brand after Ivan Arpa relaunched the brand with the success of the Titanic. So after the Titanic, Arpa left, and Manuel Emsch took, the brand and took it to, the next level in terms of solidifying the success all over the world. Although, Roman Jerome probably not the best brand to mention. This,
possibly
they don't exist anymore now. But
these things happen in the industry, Pietro. Brands, not all brands live forever. Some shine brightly for a few years, and then they just, whether they're on trend or off trend, or maybe what the customer base that they're relying on moves, the tastes change. But Roman Jerome, it was a cool brand for a number of years, and maybe just its time was up. These things happen, and Roman Jerome are not the only watch brand to have come and gone, and that's
it could be I mean, it happens for the independents, but it happens also for the mainstream brands in the big groups, especially when some mistakes are made in how many watches are produced over the real capacity to absorb for the brand.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a pretty packed week again, Johnny, and I know you're going to be busy as well with possibly the second episode of your podcast, In the Metal, which we loved the first one with the legend rock star Dan Spitz, converted into master watchmaker. So I'm looking forward to the next. What are you preparing? Which personality are we going to be able to?
Well, for the week ahead, this Thursday evening at 7 p.m. in UK time, 8 o'clock CET, and 2 o'clock EDT, where Dan is busy with his watchmaking. We're going to be interviewing a guy who was one of the first independents that I ever wrote about, and a great story about this guy. His name is Mark Genie, and Mark is a gentleman. He's a lovely guy, and whenever I started writing about watches, I was pretty much writing about mainstream brands, which is what I knew and I could see mostly online and that. Around the time of about 2005, 2006, I became aware of the Goldfile 7 Masters collection. And these were names that I had never heard of before. And this was the independent guys, including Vianney and Felix Baumgartner and Sven Anderson and a number of 7 Masters. And so I realized that there was another side to this watch industry. I suppose a little bit, it's like the wine business. Like we're all familiar with a nice bottle of wine, but there are Petrus and there are really special ones that most people we don't ever come into contact with or will never hear about. But it was the same with the independent brands. So the story, to try and keep it short here for you, I was writing about mainstream brands. I was writing an article, maybe 400 or 500 words, reviewing a new watch that was just released. And I would send off an email to the watch brand and say, look, I've just written about this new watch of yours. And I would get an email back, and the email would be, thank you for your interest in our brand. And I go, oh, right. That's a bit of a flat feeling. I've just spent a day writing about your watch, you know. So, however, so this day I wrote about this guy called Marc Genie, and he was he created this watch that had no crown. So the winding, the time setting, and the date were all done around the bezel, around the outside of the case. So there's a rubber ring on the first prologue. And so I was really impressed with this. It was refreshing thinking, and it was a new idea. I wrote about it, and I sent off my email as I dutifully did. And a couple of hours later, I got a reply. And it took me about half an hour to read the reply. This was not thank you for your interest in our brand. This was the guys going, wow, you wrote about me. You wrote about my watch. And I go, wow. And I can remember how elated I felt that this guy, a real watchmaker whose name was on the dial of that watch, had got back to me and started telling me how much he appreciated it. And since then, Marc Genie has been one of my greatest friends in the independent category. He has introduced me to more people. He has sat me down at AHCI dinners, and coming from where I come from, Pietro, where people would not get independent watches, or at least up until not too long ago, they would not have understood it. Here was I, come from a small town in Ireland, and I'm sitting with the elite of the independent watchmaking sector. And so that's who we are going to have on In the Metal on Thursday night, and I can't wait.
Very, very good. So we can't wait either. And so yes, I think we have a great week in front. We'll see you, Johnny, again at the end of the week to make sure everything is going well for all of us.
And look forward to that again too.
To comment on the main events of the week, and probably we take the opportunity to also discuss about what's happening in the politics of watchmaking with the new announcement today of the Richmond Group that has not given up the idea of presenting the new collections for 2020 despite the COVID-19 crisis, differently from Patek and Rolex, who have decided to postpone everything to next year. So maybe we'll be able
this is what we have. Well, very briefly, Watches and Wonders are going online this weekend with an online watch exposition, and so they have 30 huge brands who are participating in this, from Lange, from Panerai, from Jaeger-LeCoultre. So it promises to be, and we've also got a lot of independents in there too. HYT, MB&F, Moser, Grunfeld, they're all going to be there as well. So promises to be a very, very interesting thing. And I am brilliant. The platform has been there for years and they haven't used it, and that is the internet. And it is, we're in a time of crisis now. The world is responding. People are going online like they never have before. And this is the place to show you can do great things with the internet. And I think we're about to see a spectacular show. And even looking at their trailer this morning, which is about a 1-minute video, that wasn't put together over the weekend. This has been well thought out. And I believe that we're in for a new dawn. A lot of things are going to change because of the coronavirus. We're going to see one part of that is going to be how the watch shows happen as well. Hopefully, of course, we'll be able to get back and handle these watches and meet the guys and talk and learn about the intricacies and what adventures they had when they were making them. But in the absence of being able to go to the shows and meet them in person, Watches and Wonders online, April 25th, that is going to be very interesting.
Interesting, absolutely. And thank you, Smiley Cod, pour vos questions. Je réalise maintenant que vous parlez français, donc voilà. Merci, thank you very much. There is, Johnny, for you a question as well. Smiley Cot is saying a really horrible name, Watches and Wonder. Don't you think SIHH had a ring to it? For me, SIHH was very important in my development as a watchmaking lover. I don't know how that sounds a bit weird, but anyway.
No, but you're right. Yeah.
I think the point is they're trying over the last few years. We've seen it from SIHH. They were trying to open up more to the public because SIHH was an insiders kind of show. So opening to the public, it needed a name that can inspire something to people that are not inside the concept itself. And Fadel has just as well put his opinion. He doesn't like the name either. What's your take on this, Johnny?
It's a rebranding. Look, a lot of these watches are actually wonders. So hey, I don't know if I would have given it that. I would have thought about it a little bit longer than that. But or maybe this is a boardroom decision where there's maybe 10 people sitting around and they've had to agree on something, and that's what they've come out with. SIHH to us who are working in the watch industry, who have been immersed in it for the last 20 years, SIHH had a prestige about it. That Salon International Haute Horlogerie, it had a prestige. It's something that, and if you were invited to SIHH, it was something that was, it seemed to be just a little step above. But most people would not understand SIHH.
I think the issue with Watches and Wonders is that it sounds really marketing-like rather than substantial. But in a way, SIHH was too technical because Salon International de l'Haute Horlogerie is conceptually something that only people that are working in the industry would have grasped in a way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But look, it's gone. And here, we better be careful, because if we start criticizing their name, whenever we go next year and our passes don't work, and we go through
we're okay. It's Smiley Cot. Smiley Cot did it, so we are okay. We're good.
Smiley Cot, so we blame him. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Smiley Cot. Thank you, Fadel. Thank you for all of you Genius watches. I've seen you were connected. It's been a pleasure as always, and I'll see you at the end of the week, Johnny. We talk more watchmaking.
Look forward to it, Pietro. Thanks a million for having me on, and hope you have a good week ahead. Some fantastic interviews coming up for you with Marco and with Monsieur Emsch, Manuel Emsch, and Brain Fade. So look, I hope you have a fantastic week, and I look forward to catching up with you at the end of the week on the eve of the new Watches and Wonders, and let's see what's happening.
Brilliant. Take care. Thank you very much.